With almost 2 decades of IT experience specialized in engineering operations, developing and executing IT strategies, our next visionary has a demonstrated history of building and leading high performing IT teams specialized in cloud computing, DevOps, build and release, configuration management, and performance testing. She's always on the lookout to envision and enhance the existing automation to make it more robust and efficient. What's more, she's very passionate about training and technical writing. In a few moments, you shall be seeing her sharing her vision on embracing security in DevOps in light of AWS. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put some happy round of applause for the incredible Ms. Bhuvaneswari Subramani.
Hello everyone, we welcome you to DevOps India Summit. Today's topic I'm going to talk about embracing security in DevOps in light of AWS Cloud. The takeaways are going to be highlights of DevOps, the storyline with a sample use case, how the static code analysis handle, and security scanning for vulnerability analysis. We're going to talk about it. And we'll also touch upon the AWS Cloud Security Services. DevOps highlights. What is DevOps basically? It is the cultural practice, tools, and the process put together to ensure that agility is in place to take the software development methodology on its toes at a faster pace. So the DevOps is the approach to bridge the gap between development and operations team, where the ultimate goal is to shorten the software development lifecycle. Here are the principles of DevOps. Our intention, our goal is to have 100% automation, ensure we are agile to meet the end goals as quickly as possible, collaborative across cross-functional teams, foster innovation, ensure the solution we implement is completely reliable and scalable. Of course, the security is also there. But what happens with DevSecOps? So security gets embedded in every part of the development process, right from early development till you take it to the production environment. So this helps us for detecting the issues much ahead of time and continue to mitigate the risks. So DevSecOps is a process where the security becomes the shared responsibility across all teams to ensure that the process is smooth and secure. The intention is not just to automate things, but in a secured way. So the difference between DevOps and DevSecOps is like addition of security in every stage of our development process. So with this highlights, let's get into the storyline for today. I'm assuming a use case where our small web application development happens independently and our infrastructure code is using the AWS CloudFormation template, which is being developed separately by 2 different teams. And each of them commit their code into different repository, web application repository and infrastructure code repository. So once you have these things, only the web app needs to be compiled, but not the infrastructure code. So the web application is compiled using the build stage, using AWS code build, and the artifact that is in the deployable format is exported and it is placed in the S3 bucket. So now we have the artifact in a deployable format ready to be deployed. Now with the infrastructure code, you don't have to build or compile or generate artifact. The raw code as such can be executed using AWS code deploy to spin up the required infrastructure. Here, the required infrastructure is just an EC2 instance we are creating. On top of it, we are deploying the web application. So once we have this application ready and end user validates it, all set, so now we have the application working. Our requirement here in this entire pipeline is to build and deploy the Java web application code on the newly created EC2 instance, get it validated, and then create an AMI, that is the template out of this EC2 instance. Later, which can be used to roll out for dev, test, and production environments as a baseline, or if you're about to sell this as a product in AWS Marketplace, then we would create this AMI, validate it, and keep it. This is our entire process. So we are integrating a manual check wherein our release manager or someone superior who has to give a green signal for the release is going to say, yes, you're set to create an AMI. Validation is done. Then the Lambda will get executed, create the AMI, and the information is logged in Amazon CloudWatch. So now all set. So this is our sample pipeline with source, build, and deploy stages. Now the bigger question is, the AMI that we have created now, is it secure? We ensure that our DevOps pipeline is in place. AMI is created in an automated way, no manual intervention, all that perfect. But is it secure? No. How can we make it secure? So these are the security best practices defined by Amazon Web Services, how the template, that is Amazon Machine Image, should be secured. The first and foremost thing is AMIs must not contain any known vulnerabilities, malwares, and viruses. The AMIs do not contain passwords or key pairs, and it should not request or access to any security keys for accessing any other AWS services. And the other important thing is Linux-based AMIs should not allow SSH-based password authentication. So how are we going to ensure that the AMI that we create are free from these vulnerabilities? That's what we're going to check as part of our session. So there are 3 stages we can implement security in the pipeline. First one, static code analysis, vulnerability assessment, and threat detection. So what are the little steps to secure these AMIs? When we are talking about 3 different aspects of inculcating safety and security in our CI/CD pipeline. The first one is security analysis. The intention is to identify the vulnerabilities early in the cycle in the non-running static code. The second one, vulnerability assessment, we're going to do it with Amazon Inspector, which is going to check for the common vulnerabilities and exposures. Third one is threat detection using Amazon GuardDuty to monitor and detect unusual API calls or the potentially unauthorized deployments. We will see these things in detail, how this can be embedded in our pipeline to make it DevSecOps going hand in hand right from our early development stage. Starting with static code analysis. So static code analysis, the intention is to find the weakness in your source code against a defined set of rules, either from the source code or from the compiled set of binaries. You should be able to detect the vulnerabilities or the weaknesses in the source code. And when you're defining the coding guidelines is based on either MISRA or ISO 26262. So how do we analyze? So when we say static code analysis, what tool is the best fit for me? Or how do I integrate static code analysis in my pipeline? It will be integrated in the build stage. Either you would do before the build, you would analyze the static code. If it checks, you can continue, or you can do it parallelly, similar to JUnit test that you perform. Or you can also go for a tool which can be applied on the compiled binaries. So in these 3 different ways, you can apply static code analysis in the build stage of your pipeline. So how do I decide what is the right tool for my implementation? It must support, of course, your programming language that you're using, and what are the types of vulnerabilities does it detect? It should meet your end goal, right? Does it require a fully buildable set of source? Is it going to deal with the entire source or a part of it? Or can it work on binaries or the actual source code? Or can I integrate with the IDEs? That is, day-to-day developers, can they have it within them? Or is it an expensive tool that it can be integrated only with your centralized build systems? So these are some of the considerations that you would think before picking up the right tool. There are a lot of tools available in the market. You have both open source and commercial tools. As far as open source is concerned, we have Find Bugs, Spot Bugs, PMD, and DevBugs. The next one, coming to commercial tools, 45 Veras Code, Code Sonar, CodeSec. These are some of the tools which you can consider using them. Now we saw how would you do the static code analysis. How are we going to do about vulnerability assessment and threat detection? Let's cover this under broader topic, security scanning. So here we're going to talk about how the vulnerability assessment and threat detection or threat investigation is done using Amazon GuardDuty and Amazon Inspector services. So these two services are not enabled by default, like how you can create an AWS account, get in, and start using an EC2 instance. This one, you need to enable the specific service in the AWS account so that you can start using it. We'll get into the details of how this can be embedded and we can use it. First one, vulnerability assessment. So we saw in the DevOps pipeline, our static code analysis compared. Now, this vulnerability assessment happens on the EC2 instance that is up and running. It's not on the source code. It's all about ensuring that your resource, EC2 instance, is secure. So for that, you need to install an agent on the EC2 instance and then enable the vulnerability assessment, that is your Amazon Inspector. Once you have enabled that, this is going to look for the common vulnerabilities that is defined and then give the findings to us. Okay, so how does this Amazon Inspector work? It's an automated security detection service that helps us to improve our security posture. Amazon, this basically generates the findings which you can use it for your investigation. There are some of the features. You have rules which you can define, and once you define the rules, these Amazon Inspector works against the rules that you have defined and gives the list of findings which could be your potential security risks during that assessment. And there are two types of assessments. One is the host assessment. The other one is network reachability assessment. So how do you create this? First and foremost, we have to have this agent installed on the EC2 instance. Inspector agent is pretty lightweight, so you can install it. And after that, you would create an assessment template and then execute the run. Once the assessment run is finished, the findings are available which you can evaluate it. How about the pricing? It's listed here. The first 250 instance assessments for the first 90 days is absolutely free when you're first time enabling the Amazon Inspector assessment if you want to explore and take it forward. Okay, so now we saw how the vulnerability assessment works and it can happen. The next one is Amazon GuardDuty. This Amazon GuardDuty is helpful in detecting the threats. How does this work? So we know when we have a VPC, when I create an EC2 instance, I would put that EC2 instance within a VPC. So that VPC, I'm going to enable the VPC flow logs. And if I'm going to test the application routing to the end user via Route 53, that will have DNS flow logs as well. So I have DNS flow logs stored. And most importantly, I wanted to monitor what happens in all through the account. So when I wanted to monitor what happens all through the account, CloudTrail is a much required service that needs to be enabled. So this CloudTrail by default records the information for first 90 days and keep it in history. If you want to have the CloudTrail events beyond that, store it in an S3 bucket, create a trail and leave it. So using CloudTrail, you can monitor management events or data events. So the management events would cover everything that you wouldn't do within the AWS account. For example, if you're logging in as a user, that is counted. So each of the activity that you do within an AWS account is an API call. All those API calls are recorded within these AWS CloudTrail events. Vulnerability assessment using Amazon Inspector. Now let's look into how threat detection can be done. We're going to use Amazon GuardDuty for threat detection. So how does this works basically? The GuardDuty looks for, continuously monitors the VPC flow logs, AWS CloudTrail events, and DNS flow logs for the threat detection. So how do I get these logs? If I have this EC2 instance created, I will put it in a VPC, virtual private cloud, for it to be in a private network. For that, to monitor and to have an effective thing, I have enabled VPC flow logs. That gets recorded into an S3 bucket. The next one, what is CloudTrail? CloudTrail is a monitoring service, account monitoring service, I would say, to emphasize more. So each of the activities that is happening within an AWS account is an API call. So those API calls are recorded in the AWS CloudTrail as an event. By default, when you create an AWS account, this CloudTrail monitoring is enabled and you will have information only for 90 days. But as far as threat detection is concerned, or if you wanted to analyze the CloudTrail events, you wanted to have them for an extended period of time beyond that 90 days. So for that, you can go ahead and create a trail and then store it in an S3 bucket, which you can use it. So what kind of events get logged here? If you log into an AWS account, or if you're going to create an EC2 instance, you're going to delete some user which you have already added, all these events get logged. So the events are categorized into data events and management events. So most of the events that you do, any operations you do would fall under managed events. If you're dealing with Lambda functions and S3, that is how many times the Lambda function was invoked, the API calls to the Lambda function, or how many get or put operations are there in S3 bucket. These are the kind of information you would look for in the data events. So that's about CloudTrail. So now we have turned on VPC flow logs and CloudTrail. What is this DNS flow logs? Now, since it's a web application, I want to access this web application from an external user outside the internet, and I want to monitor. If you're sending this information via Route 53, you will have DNS and the flow logs will be available. So now threat detection works cohesively considering VPC flow logs, AWS CloudTrail events, and DNS flow logs to analyze that. Getting to the details of this VPC flow logs. So now we will see Amazon GuardDuty in detail. So this GuardDuty is a threat detection service based on machine learning, which continuously monitors for malicious and unauthorized behavior in an account. Either it's Amazon GuardDuty or your Amazon Inspector, you're not going to define the logic or build something from scratch. These are managed services, pre-built, available as a ready-made for us to consume the services readily without spending much time or reinventing the wheel. So what this GuardDuty can do for us? It can detect the unusual API calls, attempts to disable CloudTrail logging. We said that we have the CloudTrail logging enabled. If I've shared my AWS account with a couple of my friends, I will know who's logging in, who's enabling, who's creating an EC2 instance, or who's deleting an S3 bucket. But what if there is some malicious thing which is trying to disable the CloudTrail logging? That should be recorded, right? And instance and account compromise, some of these things Amazon GuardDuty will help. And what are the features? The alerts in GuardDuty console and CloudWatch events can help you assess this information. And as I've told you in the previous slide, it continuously monitors for CloudTrail logs, VPC flow logs, and DNS flow logs. How does it work? So there is no agent installation, all that here, because it works across the account. You're going to enable the GuardDuty in specific region where you have hosted this EC2 instance. So it's going to monitor it and go for it. Okay, so that's how it works. Then how does the pricing works? It's based on the volume of data that you have assessed as part of VPC flow logs and DNS flow logs, and the quantity of CloudTrail events that is monitored. So these are the parameters based on which it decides how the information is processed, and you will be charged accordingly. But remember, if you're going to try it, first 30 days is free whenever you're first trying to use Amazon GuardDuty in your account. Okay, so now I have enabled GuardDuty probably in Mumbai region. Will it be accessible outside that region? No, these are regional service specific to that region. Okay, so by using these features, we are able to integrate static code analysis, vulnerability check, and then threat detection to our pipeline, and security is tightly embedded into that in light of AWS Cloud. So now we'll see what are the other security services available in AWS Cloud and how many of them we have consumed in this and how much more is available, which we can consider using in future. What is AWS Strategic Security? The intention is first to prevent. If you can't prevent, if the issue happened, we have to detect and then respond to that incident. And the next step is to remediate. So what will you do to prevent? You have to define user permissions with IAM. Who can access what? Who can do what in the account? Set up infrastructure protection as needed. And how would you detect? By enabling logging, as we spoke, enable CloudTrail, which will monitor the accounts, who access when and what services kind of thing. And you can enable CloudWatch logging as applicable to the services, and also enable application logging, send it to the CloudWatch. So these are the different ways you can detect and then respond. So you should have automated incident response and also recovery mechanisms in place, which will help us to quickly respond to our customers in case of an incident that has happened. First thing, to inform them and also ensure that application is not impacted because of a specific incident, right? Then how are we going to fix this issue, clean that, and then move forward? So these are the strategic behind the security concepts. And there are a whole lot of services and different categories. IAM, that is Identity and Access Management, where we have services for AWS IAM. You can implement single sign-on when you're trying to integrate with your corporate network. You have AWS organizations when you wanted to have multiple accounts and manage things. Now, if you wanted to go ahead and detect the issue, we will have Amazon GuardDuty and Amazon Inspector, CloudTrail. It's going to monitor continuously your system. And for infrastructure protection, we have services like AWS Shield. So by default, Shield is enabled. If you wanted to have advanced protection, then you can pay extra and go for it. But all the accounts are by default protected with AWS Shield. We have Windows Application Firewall Manager as well. And data protection, yes, it's a big thing, right? So now if you're putting data into S3 bucket to store, you're putting the artifact or you're putting the CloudTrail logs, VPC, DNS, flow logs, all that is going to S3 bucket. So we have the service called Amazon Macie, which continuously monitor the configured S3 bucket and detects for any securities, any exposure of data, personally identifiable information, and all those things will be detected. We have KMS, Key Management Services, to encrypt or decrypt your service. You can use, and we also have AWS Certificate Manager, through which you can import your custom certificate, or you can create one certificate here and start using it. Integrate with your CloudFront for giving SSL-based access to your website. And for incident response, we have Cloud Endure and Amazon Detective. So these are like huge list of services that we have. And for compliance, we have AWS Artifact as well. So with these services, what we used in today's session at a high level is Amazon IAM, that is Identity and Access Management Service. We have Amazon GuardDuty, Amazon Inspector, and CloudTrail. So not just with this, to have more security in place, we can check and use whatever is appropriate for our pipeline and go for it. So we are good. So we have looked through the sample pipeline, and we also saw how we can bring in static code analysis, how we can do the vulnerability assessment and threat detection. So what services in the AWS cloud are coming handy to facilitate this? And we also had a close look at about AWS cloud security services, how these services can help you to build security right from scratch, even at the POC level, all the way we go to the production rollout. So that's it I had for today's session. Hope you're going to enjoy the rest of the DevOps India Summit Conference with a great theme, DevSecops. Thank you so much. Let's continue to ingrain security in our entire DevOps process. You can reach me on Twitter and LinkedIn handle. Thank you.